6 tries to 1 in the end, 41-13, the final score from AMI Stadium in Christchurch. And, well, at half-time there were only 5 points in it. The All Blacks pulling away in the second half. Not too much time between matches, so very quickly, guys. John, game of two halves, you said it.
Yeah, it was. And again, as New Zealand, you know, they've been doing this for a number of years now. They're so good in that second half. They're so good when the reserves come on and really make an impact, as Justin Marshall alluded to. And, you know, 26-3 the second half. We were only able to score 3 points in the second half, and they turned it on and really played much better in the second half as well, New Zealand, because I thought we were sort of containing them a little bit in the first half, not being able to really play their natural game.
Again, as was the case in the first 3 rounds, Nick, we saw glimpses of what the Springboks can produce. Sustaining it over 80 minutes seems to be the challenge.
I think any team playing the All Blacks struggles to sustain a challenge over 80 minutes. And the little things in the second half just unfortunately didn't go right. We kicked the ball out on the full right at the very start of the game. You know, he's a great rugby player, Malcolm Marx, but there were 3 lineouts that went astray. When you're playing the All Blacks, you cannot lose your set piece, because every turnover opportunity, a lost lineout or a ball kicked away poorly or a turnover at the tackle is a try-scoring opportunity for them. So, I mean, this wasn't a result that was a surprise, quite frankly. Given the development of our team and given how well New Zealand are playing, given the relative skills between their players and ours, it would have been a surprise, I think, if we'd managed to hold them to 10 points.
That was probably the difference in the 2 halves as well, was the first half not giving away possession, making mistakes from a South African point of view. Our set phase functioning really well.
Got a few penalties at scrum time.
Yeah, and then second half, you know, totally different. Set phase not functioning, giving ball away. And again, the result is conceding a lot of tries.
Yeah, but we also felt the pressure in the second half. Okay, forget the scoreboard, but suddenly the ball got stuck in the midfield. You know, the players on the outside never received a good pass, and that's where we tend to win. As soon as we feel the pressure, we tend to just go back a little bit in our shell, and we don't play, we don't create, and that's the sad part, because there's still opportunities. But as we all said, you know, you can't start the second half. You know, you've got 5 points and then you kick it directly into touch.
Yeah, or when the Springboks do create and take opportunities. Usually they undo it seems, Mitch, in one little small error here or there. They scored a wonderful 7-pointer in the first half, and immediately from the kickoff, knock on. Costly.
Yeah, but where I think we can really, where they can be really positive and take a lot out of, I thought they were tactically superb against the All Blacks in the first half. I think there's a lot to be learned, and there's a template there that actually forces the All Blacks into a non-tempo game. But if there's one area where I think the Springboks have got to rectify or address quickly, is defensive organisation. And a great example of that is number 9's defence from the scrum, where he just sits on, and the All Blacks keep coming there all the time from scrum attack, and eventually, you know, they succumb to a try. So,
John, sorry, I think he's told that he's got to watch the 10. So he's drifting off the 9 who's running, and we got punished terribly badly by the fact that Faf didn't close down their 9 at the base of the scrum.
Gents, at the touch screen, a lot of talk about New Zealand starting slower than they finish in test matches. Is that just a trend, do you think, Ashwin? Do you think there has to be a real rollicking in the change rooms at half-time, or is it just the way they go about their business? They know that they'll wear the opposition down enough for the gaps to appear in the second half.
I'd like to think that it's, you know, their understanding of what the opposition offers, because we saw them coming back. They were able to score 2 tries in the first half, and both tries were scored where South Africa was weak, which is our wide defence. It was set phase, and thereafter straight going wide to be able to put up one phase, go wide, and be vulnerable out wide in terms of defence. So their ability to understand the weakness of the opposition. If we look at the number of tries were scored by New Zealand, we've stressed South Africa's defensive structures, or lack thereof rather. And if you look at New Zealand's tries, the way that it was scored, I think that the try of Whitlock came from a line out. They went wide, came back wide, we had no defenders, and they literally go on and score their try there. The try from Paranara, pick up the ball from the base of the scrum, went straight, no one there to defend that try. If we look at Smith's try as well as Adi Sevilla's try, we saw there that our defenders was beaten, and this is our loose forward standing in the defensive line was beaten. New Zealand get the forward momentum, and as a result, they end up scoring those tries. So I think from that perspective, our defensive structure is really something that we have to look at and sort out, because today, as John have alluded to it, the way that we were playing South Africa, you know, we saw glimpses and we saw the quality of what can be done. This try specifically, it was well constructed. The guys were running in the gaps. The ball carrier was aware of his support players, and we were able to score a magnificent try.
And I think all we're saying here is, in whatever context of the game or whatever situation, just all you need to do is be organised for 3 phases, and then you can basically create slow ball back in the game. Yeah?
And there's the first try, for example. We saw one phase set up, went back the same side, and no one on the wide.
The problem again was the number 9 there, because they managed, the number 9 was hanging off, and they got tremendous momentum between 9 and 10 channel. And the moment you get momentum, Ashwin, you find it very difficult to set your defence.
There we go again. One phase, they come back, and we're vulnerable out wide. Now that is defensive structure. The wing outside having to speak to the guys on his inside. This one, the defender beaten, ball going forward. All of a sudden, we get the same result.
See, off your line out, you know, you've got your tail gunner and you've got your last line out forward.
Yeah.
They've got to be given responsibilities to fold at 1 and 2.
Yeah.
They've got to be very, very clear, and then you set the rest of your switch side defence. And if 10 gets taken out, he's got to get quickly back up on his feet and get to switch side.
Yeah.
And then you've got numbers.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. And I think the big thing with that is also it is a coachable thing. So
Yeah,
you know, we're looking here, and I think we were very realistic about our chances today, and already we saw that there were improvement in certain aspects. I think tactically we were good in the way that we attacked. And that we identified, you know, areas that we could exploit them. But from a defensive point of view, we're probably still finding our fit there, and just what we're about and how we want to defend. And that needs to be improved. But it's not a major thing that you can't rectify. You know, if you can really analyse the situation, see which way we want to defend going forward, you put that in place, and you actually form a structure around your defensive system.
To your point, John, I think here's a line-out. And now if you look at this, the All Blacks, they get the line-out ball, and now they're going to play the ball wide. And we talk about defensive structures and systems. At this stage, the blindside defense have to be organized and need to understand what is happening. So now look as to see how they go all the way wide. When this ball come back now, how disjointed they are in defense.
But Ashwin, what they do is they always leave the jumper out wide, and they leave the hooker out wide. Where's our jumper? Where's our hooker? You've got to leave the equivalent players who contested the line-out and the hooker to contest their hooker. You can't all gravitate towards the ball and close to the ruck. This is the understanding on defence that we're lacking at the moment. This is an example of the 9. Faf is moved out because he's trying to defend on 22 instead of staying on Perenara, and it happened the whole game. Even on the first try, there was a gap which gave them momentum. Once they get momentum 5 yards from your line, you just can't set your defence in time.
You can't move unless you speak to your players on the inside. Faf there, getting into a position, if he does that, he has to speak to his flanker on the inside to say, what's this gap? When we talk about leaving players on the outside, the winger, when they play wide, your job is to be able to stand there and speak to the players on your inside to say, let's get into position, because I can see they're leaving their players out here. So those defensive elements, John, is something that the box needs to sort out, to fix ASAP, because our attack, it's seemingly has gotten better.
I reckon where the game's gone, we're in total trouble if you're into slide defence. You have to shut down attack by going forward, and you need to show courage, and you need to be bold, and it's body on body. You have to go forward, full stop.
And the only way to do that, if you say get away with the slide defence, is to get into position quicker and make sure that you can man up and then go up in a straight line in defence. But it seems as though our reaction speed in getting into position is way too slow to enable to front up.
Totally.
And also, I think it is reaction on the one side, but it's also assessing the situation. You know, guys actually not just ball watching and looking at the ruck, but actually looking up what's going on in front of you. You know, is there a guy out wide? You know, then start pulling the guys out, or are they actually migrating to the one side and assessing the situation? And again, it comes down to decision making. So the communication that we spoke about earlier, and then you know, the assessment of the situation and acting on that.
And let's also give credit to the All Blacks, because the All Blacks are coached to have a look at a defensive structure and to try and attack the weakness in that, and they take very, very good decisions.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So they, if the initial defender shifts, they'll go into that gap to get momentum.
Yes.
If the space is out wide, the ball gets out wide. So while we must improve our defence, let's give credit to the All Blacks for often making the right decision, and they did today. And also, Julian Severe, he went through 3 or 4 tackles. So the system can be in place, but you've got to make your tackles.
Yep.
Right, well, there's still another 80 minutes of test match rugby still to come in the Castle Lager Rugby Championship, and it's on to Perth as the Wallabies prepare to take on the Pumas. This will be the last match that the Australians play on home soil this year. We'll also have changes in studio, so to those of you gents, too many to mention, to those of you gents who are leaving us, I know Mitch will be leaving, I know Nick will be leaving, and we'll have a couple of new fresh faces in the studio for the second of today's test matches. Don't go anywhere.